News of powerful weapons, especially from Russia, always grabs global attention. Russia recently announced a test of a new nuclear missile, sparking intense discussion in the United States. With the ongoing war in Ukraine and tense US-Russia relations, this missile test feels especially significant. Such a display can shift the balance of power and raises questions about Russia's intentions. The timing amid a brutal conflict in Ukraine makes the move even more provocative. Many wonder if Russia is trying to intimidate its adversaries or signal a new phase in the conflict. That's why this missile test is front-page news and a major concern for global security. Former President Donald Trump wasted no time in responding to Russia's recent missile test, making headlines with his direct and pointed remarks. As soon as news broke of the launch, Trump addressed the issue publicly, ensuring that his message would reach not only the American people, but also international audiences. Directing his message squarely at Russian President Vladimir Putin, Trump made it clear that he was speaking to the highest levels of Russian leadership. He didn't mince words, choosing instead to confront Putin's actions head-on, a move that drew attention from media outlets around the world. Trump openly criticized the timing of the missile test, arguing that Russia should be dedicating its resources and attention to ending the ongoing war in Ukraine, rather than showcasing new and potentially destabilizing weapons. He emphasized that such displays of military power do nothing to help resolve the conflict and only serve to heighten global tensions. According to Trump, these military parades and demonstrations of force only complicate an already volatile and dangerous situation. He warned that such actions risk escalating the conflict further, making diplomatic solutions even harder to achieve. Trump's message was unambiguous. He insisted that peace in Ukraine should be the top priority for all parties involved. He called for an immediate shift in focus from military might to meaningful negotiations and humanitarian efforts, highlighting the suffering of ordinary people caught in the crossfire. While acknowledging that the United States also conducts missile tests as part of its defense strategy, Trump stressed that the context and timing of Russia's actions were particularly reckless. He suggested that given the ongoing war, Russia's decision to proceed with such a test was both provocative and irresponsible. By directly linking the missile test to the ongoing war in Ukraine, Trump highlighted the growing frustration among global leaders and citizens alike with Russia's continued aggression. He pointed out that these actions are not isolated incidents, but part of a troubling pattern that threatens international stability. Trump's comments also underscored a significant shift in tone. Even leaders who once sought dialogue and cooperation with Putin, including Trump himself, now view Russia's recent moves as deeply concerning and counterproductive to peace efforts. The world, Trump implied, is watching these developments closely, and what it wants is not more escalation, but a genuine commitment to peace. He urged all nations to come together in demanding an end to hostilities and a return to diplomacy. This strong criticism from a former US president adds weight to the growing international calls for an urgent resolution to the conflict. Trump's words serve as a reminder that the stakes are high and that the world cannot afford to ignore the dangers of unchecked military escalation. Ultimately, Trump's remarks remind us all that military posturing and displays of power are no substitute for real, lasting solutions. Only through dialogue, negotiation, and a shared commitment to peace can the world hope to end the suffering and build a safer future for everyone. The missile at the center of this controversy is Russia's Burevestnik, also known as SSC-X-9 Skyfall. Russian officials claim it's a nuclear-powered missile with nearly unlimited range. This technology, if real, would allow it to reach targets anywhere in the world. President Putin calls it a strategic weapon, designed to evade missile defenses. If these claims are true, the Burevestnik could bypass systems built to intercept traditional missiles. Russia is promoting this missile as a symbol of its military modernization. The Burevestnik is meant to reinforce Russia's status as a top military power. The war in Ukraine is the backdrop for every Russian military move. Every decision, every maneuver, and every show of force by the Russian military is now seen through the lens of this ongoing conflict. The devastation and chaos unleashed by the war have fundamentally altered the way the world perceives Russia's actions, casting a long shadow over the entire region and beyond. This conflict has devastated Ukraine and driven millions from their homes. Cities that once bustled with life now stand in ruins, and families have been torn apart as they flee to safety. The human cost is staggering. Children forced to leave behind their schools, parents separated from loved ones, and entire communities uprooted overnight. The trauma of war lingers in every empty street and shattered window. The US and Europe have responded with aid and sanctions, hoping to pressure Russia to withdraw. Massive shipments of humanitarian supplies and military assistance have poured into Ukraine, while economic sanctions have targeted Russian banks, businesses, and officials. The international community is united in its resolve to support Ukraine, but the path to peace remains uncertain. President Zelensky continues to call for more support to end the war. His impassioned speeches and tireless diplomacy have rallied global attention, urging allies to provide more weapons, financial aid, and political backing. Zelensky's Zdaldi, Sardalbidmb, or Sokistis Gubs, Hanskizdet has become a symbol of Ukrainian resistance and hope in the face of overwhelming odds. Trump's criticism of the missile test echoes a global frustration. Russia seems more focused on military might than peace. Around the world, leaders and citizens alike question Moscow's intentions, wondering if there is any real desire for negotiation, or if the focus remains on displays of power and intimidation. Each new weapon test signals that the conflict could drag on or escalate. The world watches anxiously as Russia unveils new military technology, fearing that these demonstrations are not just for show, but warnings of further violence to come. The threat of escalation hangs heavy over every announcement and every launch. The war has isolated Russia from much of the world and deepened mistrust. Diplomatic ties have frayed, embassies have closed, and Russia finds itself increasingly cut off from international forums. The sense of isolation is palpable, with even former allies keeping their distance. Any Russian military action, especially involving nuclear-capable weapons, is now viewed with suspicion. The specter of nuclear escalation is never far from people's minds, and every movement of these weapons is scrutinized by governments and the public alike. The stakes have never felt higher. These moves are seen as threats, not routine drills. What might once have been dismissed as standard military exercises now trigger alarm and condemnation. The world is on edge, wary of any action that could tip the balance toward a wider conflict. The missile test is interpreted as a sign that Russia isn't backing down. Instead, it's seen as a message to the world, a demonstration of resolve and a warning that Russia is prepared to escalate if challenged. The Ukraine war shapes every reaction to Russia's military actions. Analysts pore over every detail, connecting each new development to the broader conflict. The war has become the context for all Russian military activity, influencing how every move is judged. It's the lens through which the world views Moscow's intentions. Every statement, every deployment, every test is filtered through the reality of the ongoing war, making it nearly impossible for Russia to act without drawing suspicion and concern. That's why the missile test has sparked such intense concern. For many, it's not just another military event. It's a reminder that the war in Ukraine continues to cast a shadow over everything, shaping global politics, security, and the hopes for peace. Trump also highlighted America's own military strength in response to Russia's test. He mentioned U.S. nuclear submarines near Russia, signaling that America is prepared and vigilant. This was a reminder that the U.S. has advanced weapons and global reach. Trump's message: America is confident in its ability to deter any threat. The missile test is just one part of the broader standoff between Russia and the West. The US and European Union have imposed tough sanctions on Russia, targeting key industries like oil and gas. These penalties are designed to weaken Russia's ability to fund the war. The goal: make the conflict too costly for Russia to continue. President Zelensky welcomes these measures, but urges for even more support. Sanctions have chilled relations and fueled anger on both sides. Many see Russia's military displays as a response to this pressure. The West's strategy combines economic penalties with military readiness. The hope is to force Russia toward peace, but the risk of escalation remains. The world watches, hoping pressure leads to negotiation, not a bigger conflict. Despite Russia's claims, many Western military experts are skeptical about the Burevestnik. They doubt the missile's reliability and question the safety of nuclear-powered technology. Some call the project risky and impractical, noting that the US abandoned similar ideas decades ago. Safety concerns and technical challenges make experts wary of Russia's bold statements. Many believe the Burevestnik may be more about show than real capability. The recent missile test has only deepened the already widening rift between Russia and the United States. What was once a cautious rivalry has now escalated into a dangerous standoff, with both nations watching each other's every move with suspicion and unease. The world is witnessing a new chapter in the long and complicated relationship between these two global powers. Relations, already strained by the ongoing war in Ukraine and a web of economic sanctions, have reached a historic low point. The conflict has not only devastated lives on the ground, but has also sent shockwaves through international diplomacy, making cooperation on even basic issues nearly impossible. Each new sanction, each diplomatic snub, adds another layer to the growing wall of mistrust. Every military maneuver, no matter how routine, is now viewed through a lens of suspicion. Troop movements and military exercises are interpreted as potential threats, making open dialogue and negotiation increasingly difficult. The risk of misunderstanding or accidental escalation grows with every passing day. The current situation is eerily reminiscent of the Cold War era, when both sides raced to build up their nuclear arsenals and mistrust ran deep. Back then, the world lived under the constant shadow of mutually assured destruction, and today, echoes of that dangerous time are resurfacing. In this tense environment, every action, no matter how small, is scrutinized by intelligence agencies and security analysts for hidden threats or secret intentions. The margin for error is razor thin, and the stakes could not be higher. Publicly, both countries insist they want to avoid a new arms race and prevent open conflict, yet their actions, military buildups, aggressive rhetoric, and frequent shows of force tell a different story. The world watches as warships patrol contested waters, and fighter jets scramble at the slightest provocation. Whenever one side tests a new weapon or conducts a military drill, the other feels compelled to respond in kind. This tit-for-tat dynamic creates a dangerous feedback loop, where each move is met with an equal or greater countermove, pushing both sides closer to the brink. This cycle of escalation makes de-escalation incredibly difficult. The risk of miscalculation or accidental conflict is ever present, as military and political leaders operate under immense pressure and uncertainty. Around the world, people watch anxiously, hoping that cooler heads will prevail. The United Nations and other international bodies call for restraint and dialogue, while ordinary citizens protest for peace and stability. The fear of a wider conflict looms large in the minds of many. Real progress will require both sides to step back from the brink, engage in honest dialogue, and take concrete steps to rebuild trust. Only through genuine diplomacy and mutual understanding can the cycle of confrontation be broken. Until that happens, the standoff continues, casting a long shadow over global security. The world remains divided, with alliances shifting and old rivalries reigniting, as everyone waits to see what the next move will be. The path to peace is shrouded in uncertainty. As leaders weigh their options, the world can only hope that wisdom and restraint will guide their decisions, and that a new era of cooperation might one day replace the current climate of fear and suspicion. Amid all the tension, the world still hopes for peace. Most people want stability and a future free from fear. The urgent goal is to end the Ukraine war and restore order. Trump recently suggested that China could help mediate, a common diplomatic strategy. Sometimes a neutral third party can open doors to negotiation. Involving a major power like China could create new opportunities for dialogue and peace.